Movie in short here. Today I am going to tell you about an Australian science fiction film called 2067. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The premise of the movie is set in 2067 when the world has been destroyed beyond rehabilitation because of climate change. All plant life has been extinct. With the lack of plant life, the amount of oxygen in the air has decreased exponentially. People have to buy artificial oxygen to survive. 99% of the world survived, and it is all thanks to a company called the Tornitop Corporation that manufactures synthetic oxygen. However, artificial oxygen causes a fatal disease called the sickness over time. Humankind has many years before it goes fully extinct. Ethan White is a resident of our Australian city. He and his friend Jude work as mechanics in the Tornitop Corporation. The corporation is also working day and night to find a cure for the sickness and a way to save the world. Ethan's wife Xanthi also has a sickness. Ethan works hard day and night to earn and buy her better oxygen. One day, as Ethan and Jude worked in the tunnel, the Tornitop CTO of Particle Research, Regina Jetson, summons them to the office. There, she introduces herself to the two and tells them that humanity is going to die in a few years if the conditions do not change. Ethan is confused and doesn't believe her, but Regina insists he visit the lab. The lab has huge machinery. The lab doctor named Billy Mitchell introduces him to Ethan and looks at Ethan's wrist device for a second. They then explain to him that Ethan's father, Dr. Richard Wade, started this project 20 years ago. The machine that stands in front of them is a time machine called the Chronicle. In the first ever experiment done with the machine, they had to send radio waves in to check what was on the other side. They found out that 407 years later, in 2474, the Earth would have enough vegetation to maintain enough oxygen in the air and sustain human life. The people come to believe that if humanity still exists several hundred years later, it is likely that they have found solutions to all the problems flooding their reality. However, a strange activity birthed the scientists there. The waves they sent had come back reformed. When they decoded it, they found out that someone from the future had sent them the message saying, "Send Ethan Wade." So now Regina and the whole team want to send Ethan into the future for him to bring them back the cure. Ethan is beyond surprised. He doesn't believe them and thinks that Regina is just bluffing. Moreover, he doesn't want to leave his sick wife and go into the future, so he declines to help. Later, Ethan and Jude are at a dinner where they buy a crisp oxygen. Jude tries to persuade Ethan to go through with the plan and help save humanity. However, Ethan laughs at him, saying that he doesn't want to be like his father. Ethan hates his father for never being there for him. 20 years ago, his father left home and went missing, a man whom Ethan regards as his older brother as well as best friend. He blames him for leaving his mother too to complete the project and doesn't want to follow in his path and leave his sick wife. However, Jude manages to persuade him, saying that the only way he can save his wife is by finding a cure. Ethan reminisces of his 18th birthday when his father has bought him a strange watch as a gift, and he puts his hand inside the watch. A device latches onto the wrist, making him bleed. Richard has placed a permanent hand device on his son. It has been many years that Ethan doesn't know. Him to the lab again. Dr. Mitchell shows him the suit that he has to wear before getting into the machine. As they begin to explain the mission to him, Ethan realizes that they do not have a plan. They have no clue what he will see or who he will meet at the other end. However, after they put him in the suit, they give him an AI device called the Archie. Archie will show up the lab Ethan's vitals at all times. It will also help to navigate his location. Then they finally throw him to the machine. Inside, Ethan moves at high speed through time. He falls from the sky and lands in an unknown jungle. The friction from the air causes his suit to catch fire, so he quickly gets out of it. Then he looks around and is astonished by the beauty of nature. He finds that the world has completely changed. The trees and the natural oxygen are back. He walks in the direction. Archie directs him and sees a bunker door of some sort. But what catches his eye is the skeleton that lies in front of the door. Its skull has a bullet hole in it. Furthermore, he looks at the name tag on it and is horrified to see his own name. The skeleton is Ethan's. Ethan also finds the skeleton's Archie and places the last dotting on it. He hears a man say that this is the only way and shoots Ethan. Just then, the device power goes off. He is horrified, believing that this is the fate that awaits him. Then he notifies the skeleton wrist device. It is identical to Ethan's, except the light glows green in the skeleton's device. But Ethan's has the red his whole life. That night, he lights a fire and eats wild berries. It turns out the berries were poisonous. Ethan vomits and is charged to go unconscious. Ethan wakes up after a while and is surprised to see Jude in front of him. As it turns out, the lab saw Ethan's vital drop in and assumed he was having a reaction to poison, so they quickly sent Jude to the future with the cure to save him. Sometime later, Ethan and Jude find that his skeleton remains there, which means his fate hasn't changed. They then use Archie to find another door. Some device scans Ethan's eyes and grants them access. When the door in a monitor welcomes him, it asks him for the DNA sample, which he accepts it. His wrist device begins to work, making him bleed. After the blood test, it goes green. The lights of the room turn on and they realize that they are excited because now they have the means to go to the past. But Ethan thinks so, saying they haven't changed anything and he will end up dead, just like the dead Ethan. Ethan checks the system log and finds a holographic recording made by his father, who explained that the time machine was originally designed to collect the oxygen data in the future time, then transmit it to the bad past. However, when his father first started the time machine, he received a message asking him to send his son to the future. Despite his misgiving, he chose to do so and Mara won't be able to take them back because its battery has almost died after 407 years. What's worse is that the activation of the lab triggers a malfunction in its nuclear power core, threatening to unleash a nuclear explosion in just 4 hours. This means they have to find a way to fix the time machine and travel back before the explosion. Running out of time, they have to act quickly. Outside, they are surprised to find a ruined city covered with green plants, but inhabited with no humans, showing that Earth starts to recover itself after human extinction. Human skeletons are scattered everywhere. Ethan's death to his wife's house only to find her bones, making him fall into despair. Jude tries to persuade him to go back to the past, as the cure against the sickness doesn't seem to exist in the future world. However, Jude's words made Ethan suspicious. Jude's voice and it seems Jude is exactly the one who shot him. Jude raises his gun at Ethan, strongly denying that he would shoot Ethan. Ethan finally decides to complete the mission first. So with joint efforts, they manage to repair the power core and then return to the lab. Now, the Chronicle system works and they should be able to return to the past. They just need to wait 37 minutes till portal launch. Once the countdown reaches 0, the portal will theater to 2067 for approximately 30 seconds. However, Ethan still finds that his body remains behind a door at the same location, which implies that they haven't made any change to the future. In order to figure out the truth, Ethan pulls out the battery of his current Archie and pulls it onto a rusty one. In that way, he gets access to another video in which Ethan is assured that his future self will be killed by Jude. Jude then confesses that there is no hope of changing the future and he is trying to protect Ethan. Finding it hard to believe, Ethan locks his brother in a room, then plays back his father's holographic log from the day he died. He soon discovers a conversation between the Tronitop's CTO, Regina Jetson, and his father. It shows that Ethan's father wanted to use the time machine to save all mankind by finding the cure, but the CTO only intended to use the machine to flee from the dying time with someone chosen few. However, whichever plan they choose, someone must travel into the future and turn on the time machine. To safely send living matter through time, it requires an operation link from both sides. In order to stop the CTO with her plan, his father loads the time machine and sets Ethan's DNA as the verification key. In anger at what Ethan's father just did, the CTO killed him immediately. She then just orders you to kill Ethan's mother and be a guardian to him, so one day they can use Ethan's wristband to get access to the future. Ethan is beyond surprise. The man he thought of as his brother turned out to be the one who killed his mother and is about to kill him too. He also realized that he has misunderstood his father, who didn't deliberately abandon the family. Knowing that Regina wants to bring the chosen few into the future, Ethan tries to shut the machine down, but Jude just rushes to stop Ethan and reveals that he is tasked here by the CTU to ensure that Ethan is sent in time to repair the power failure. Once Ethan activates the time machine, he should kill Ethan. However, Jude has formed close emotional relation with Ethan over the years, seeing his brother like friend in the state because of him. He is dealt credence, so instead of shooting Ethan, he shoot himself dead. Enraged and dreaded, Ethan is determined to fulfill his father's dying wish, which is to find the cure and save the dying human. He looks into the monitor and finds the very first message written by his father. He deduces that the message sent Ethan White was sent by himself. Hence, he quotes in the message again and sends it into the past along with many other things. Meanwhile, in the laboratory of the year 2067, the CTO with a group of privileged choosing people are awaiting anxiously for the time machine to be activated. To their shock, however, the time machine sends back hundreds of extinct plants along with a copy of a recorded murder of Ethan's father. Soon after, the time machine is destroyed by Ethan, resulting in the collapse of the CTO's plan. In the end, the CTO is arrested due to the murder. The plants sent back in 2067 are cultivated to revitalize the planet. Ethan's wife also receives a flower sent for him and understands his choice, while Ethan has to stay in the future world alone. He buries Jude and forgives him. A butterfly catches his attention and leads him again to the same entrance where Ethan is happy to notice that the corpse of his future self has gone. He rushes to take a look of the world outside and feels relieved to see a futuristic eco-friendly city. In contrast to the deserted one from earlier, his decision has changed the future of mankind. Subscribe for more videos, like this video, turn on notification and leave a like to help out the channel out. Thanks for watching.